Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About House. I'm Todd.
I'm Oana.
Episode
9.
999.
Yes. Okay, so what this means to you is subscribe, hit the notification bell so you will be notified when episode 1000 airs. Now, we need you guys to post your questions, please.
Yeah, we have a bunch.
So we have a bunch, but we want more questions, and you can ask anything you want. We reserve the right to answer however we choose, and it'll be fun. You'll have a good time with us, and we'll answer your questions. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video, like the video, you know the drill,
Yep.
And we appreciate you being here. Let's go.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we've got a bunch of different things we're going to talk about. We're going to kind of do a rando episode. We're going to talk about construction jobs, which is kind of interesting because we have a historical thing to show you too.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about ChatGPT and Zillow. You could be able to buy a house or find a house just by typing something into Zillow. That may be kind of interesting. And then the chief economist for National Association Realtors came out. He did not have friendly words to say about Jerome Powell and the rate hikes and some other stuff. But what we're going to do, is we're going to go back and show you a couple clips from, these are like in the first maybe 50 episodes of the show.
You're the boss.
So we're going to show you two clips really quick. Here they are. Hello and welcome to Todd Miller TV, your resource for what's current in the Las Vegas real estate market. And I'm joined here by Oana Sterlacci. Oana, thank you very much for being on today.
Thanks for having me.
We had this mad rush of tax incentive and all this other crazy stuff, and it seems to have calmed down a little. And whenever there's a change in the market, there's an opportunity. So what's the opportunity right now in the marketplace?
Well, there's a wonderful opportunity right now for any buyer to come in and be able to purchase a home without the mad frenzy of multiple offers. The multiple offers have, for the most part, gone away. There are still some, of course, but for the most part, they've gone away. And they've gone away because the first-time homebuyer tax credits are gone. The Fannie Mae incentives are gone. So all the urgency in the marketplace is gone. So now what we're left with is people who want to buy a home, whether it's for investment or for themselves to live in, and they're not competing with everybody else out there. Now you're dealing with people who their sole motivation is to buy a home and they have no other agenda.
Hi, welcome to 2096 Betty. This is a 2-acre parcel. Before we get started, let me tell you a secret that you may not know in Las Vegas. Come here, come look here. Okay, check this out. Check out this number, 702-475-7516. If you dial this number, you actually have access to the entire MLS live. That's the best kept secret. Now, you think of Las Vegas as being glitzy and glamorous. Well, let's see the other side. Well, this is the main house. We've got a roof, we've got walls, and we even have a security door. Come check it out. Oh, it's my favorite part. Check out the sign. The bad guys are coming. Yay! All right, well, we've got, maybe a future media dish here. What do you think? Think we've got potential for that or just drywall damage? Take your pick. And of course the carpet is something that we can probably do without. Come on, let's check out the kitchen. Okay. Well, not much hope in the kitchen, guys. What you can see in here is that even though we've got a stove, there's really nowhere to put a dishwasher. Because of the way the kitchen sink is right here, there's really no possibility of a dishwasher.
All right, so you probably noticed a couple things different. First of all, the show used to have an opening. We had a cartoon opening that I had made.
Mm-hmm.
The show back then was called Todd Miller TV.
Mm-hmm.
I started it just by doing it myself, filming random things and property walkthroughs and me doing market updates kind of a thing. And then I started to have Oana on as a guest. which you saw, right? You saw her as a guest. And then of course I was doing property walkthroughs with Oana too. So the walkthroughs I used to hold the camera. But so obviously you can see the technology has changed. We did all the videos back then with a flip cam, just a little flip cam that you bought that was like super low resolution. What were some of the differences back then versus now?
I was silly and giggly then. I'm silly and giggly now.
Okay.
But that's not a difference. That's similarity.
I had a lot more hair.
You had more hair.
I had a lot more hair.
Okay.
I mean, those we started the channel 14 years ago.
Yeah.
So those are from 13 years ago.
Yep.
I was in my 30s then.
Yes. Back then we were talking a lot more about bank-owned homes and about Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, about vacant houses, about all sorts of things that we don't talk about much anymore.
Yeah. So some of you may not realize, but 2009, when we started the blog, that year we were the #1 real estate team in the nation. We did 1,130 or so total transaction sides. Now, what's a transaction side mean? It's a listing where you represent the seller, or it's a buyer where you represent the buyer. Now, between us, we did 750 listings. We didn't do any buyer sides, but we had a team that worked with us. They were on our team of 12 agents, and the 12 agents only answered sign calls. We had about 600 listings at any given time. So their phones were always ringing because we had this system that basically would just start ringing phones, and then agents answer their phone, they drive to the house and meet them, and then they have to ask them if they want to make an offer, and they make an offer. And they were making a lot of sales. So they did another like almost 400. So we were doing those videos in the midst of selling, hundreds of homes a year, like over 1,000 really.
Right. So we're not selling 1,000 homes a year, but we're still doing the videos. So what do you guys think? Keep going? Well, you're stuck with us for this video. So here we go. So let's start with ChatGPT.
ChatGPT?
So everybody's hot on ChatGPT. It's the most, it's the AI that gets the most press, right? It's not the only AI out there by far. I don't even know that it's the best AI out there, but it's the one that's getting the most press. So now Zillow's getting on board with ChatGPT, and they're putting this plug-in for ChatGPT users to use when searching Zillow. Now, you and I probably do not have access to that plugin because we're probably not paying ChatGPT the $20. So this is only for the ChatGPT premium users that pay the $20 a month. It's for the 4.0. And so you're wondering, okay, so what's the difference between me typing in my requirements into Zillow and typing them through the ChatGPT plugin? Right now, not a whole lot. But it's only in the alpha stage. Remember there's alpha, beta, and then it opens up to the rest of the world. So they're just starting out. They're just getting their feet wet. So they're just using a language model. So, maybe putting in there that you want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-car garage with a view of the city and a romantic fireplace, an enticing backyard, and in an artsy neighborhood. Okay. So that's a little more than what you can put in regular Zillow, right? Yeah. Now, what that would return probably is not a whole lot more than regular Zillow right now, but in time it'll get better as users give it feedback. What's coming down the line with Zillow, I think is going to be really interesting. This is a conversation I was having with somebody the other day. Zillow is probably going to start using this AI as it gets better to get more involved in transactions, I think. So do you think that Zillow is going to get more involved in transactions? Do you think that they're going to maybe start doing purchase agreements? What's the next iteration of this? Where is this going? Because that's where I think it's going. I think it's going, Zillow didn't do that great with its house flipping stint. And this is another way that they can be more involved in the transaction, keep people on their site, provide value. So I think that'll be interesting to see where they take this.
I think the low-hanging fruit for Zillow is taking a person who it's having a conversation with, which is how I would do it. Mm-hmm. I would have the AI basically act like a person conversing. Right. And then I would say, do you want me to set up a time to see it? I can have an agent meet you at a certain time, and then basically do what Zillow does is sell. They make all their money selling leads to real estate agents.
Right.
Is okay. I'll put you in touch with this agent. Here he is. Here's his info. It'll basically be more. I think it'll be more successful because it'll feel more like an actual person saying, "Hey, you should contact, Oana to see that $2 million house because she's the broker of it or whatever. She knows whatever." Right.
Right.
So I think that's low hanging fruit. I think it's going to be a little bit of a jump for it to write the offer. But I think that it's going to sort of, I think that'll be something that does happen where agents have an AI that helps them, write the offer.
So I don't think it's that much of a jump for writing the offer, and here's why. Because remember, there are state forms. So all the there aren't that many forms that they're going to deal with, right? I mean, they're going to deal with 2-3 forms per state, maybe, and it knows what state you're purchasing in, so it's going to do that. It's going to maybe ask you a series of 5 or 6 questions, and bada bing, bada boom, it's got an offer for you. So I don't think it's that far of a jump. I agree with you that that's how they're going to monetize it through agents, because that's how Zillow has always made its money, is through agents.
There is a airline in the Middle East that I think they're the first one to integrate a chat. It's it's Emirates or Etihad or Qatar, one of the, but I think it's the Middle Eastern airline. And they actually have a chat GPT where you just tell it, "Hey, I need to fly from here to here on this day. Like, what would that look like?" And it just sort of starts talking to you. "Oh, well, let's see. Hey, could you be, could do this flight and it would be this much, but if you wanted business class, it would be more, and business class, you'd get this and this. And do you like window seats? Because right now there's only aisle." It just kind of talks to you. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing. I think you're going to see more of that when you go on sites. You're going to get this explosion of the bots that talk, but the bot remember previously the bot was an algorithm that wasn't very good. I think these AIs, these language models, are extremely sophisticated.
They are. The thing to keep in mind is that whatever information you put in there, it is, for the way we think of it, public information, because it stays with that AI language model, and it's somewhat public. So be very careful when you're using it to not put private information like social security numbers and things like that in there.
Yeah. Okay. ChatGPT, Zillow, very interesting. Today, the Jerome Powell did a thing.
Well, yesterday he did it, yes.
It was yesterday. FOMC meeting, they decided to raise 25 basis points, and which is 0.25%. Now, this is short term. This is not the mortgage rates. This is short term rates. But the market will react, right? The cost of getting money just got more. This is going to actually does put pressure on banks. Here's the Lawrence Yun, the chief economist for NAR. Latest Fed hike unnecessary and harmful. He was not very happy.
He basically said a lot of the same things that I said on the video yesterday. But I'll let you read that.
Okay, I'll read this, and then we'll talk about some other general things about it. Consumer price inflation has been decelerating and will continue this trend, he says, after the awful 9% CPI in the summer of last year. The latest data shows 5% inflation, and it will be even lower as a heavyweight component to inflation, which is rent. Will inevitably slow down given the robust 40-year high construction of new apartment units. There's a bunch of things in here. Okay, let's talk about these one at a time.
Okay.
Rent data lags substantially.
Right.
You would be shocked how much rent's the most laggy of everything.
Right, because remember, rents generally only go up once a year for people because they have year-long leases. So that's a lot of the reason why rents lag. And then, of course, the way they get reported and all of that. So that's why it's a really hard figure to base anything on. And at the same time, rent makes up such a big part of the consumer price index that it can't be ignored. It has probably the biggest weight of any single thing.
Okay. Now, what about this? We did just build a bunch of apartments.
Right,
Like
so-
a ton of apartments. There was this massive boom of apartment building that sort of has been wrapping up.
Right. So recently, like in the last couple of years, we've had this massive build of apartments. We've built more apartments in the last couple of years than we've built. Like it's like a record for the last 40 years. Right now, I'm not saying that we've built 40 years worth. I'm just saying that this is the most number in a short period of time over the last 40 years. And so now that these projects are wrapping up, you're seeing unemployment of construction workers tick up. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not having construction. It means that all of these projects are wrapping up, and that's why you're seeing this tick up in construction unemployment. And of course, it's not just apartments, but they are having an outsized impact on the construction sector unemployment.
I think his take is we just need to let these, because, first of all, the Fed screwed this up in the first place. The Feds didn't stop quantitative easing soon enough, probably 8 or 9 months. They should have stopped buying, because when they're buying treasury bills and treasury securities and things like that, they're buying securities and they're putting more money out into the economy. That's
Right.
one of the levers they have. Reserve rate is a lever they've never changed. I think the reserve rate, it's basically 10%, or
Right.
you have to have 10% reserve for whatever.
Right. My argument yesterday was that the Fed took too long to react to inflation, and now the Fed has taken the rise in interest rates for too long, and it's going to have a detrimental impact on the economy because, like I said before, we have a big economy, and any change that you make to it takes a while for it to manifest in the economy, right? So that's been my concern all the way along, that the Fed would do that. What was the other thing that was in there that I can't quite remember?
The other article?
No, that Dr. Yun was talking about.
I don't remember. I have to look at the article.
Okay. So anyway, those are some of the concerns that I have about the Fed, and I think a lot of people share my concerns.
Yeah, there was another one I thought that was pretty interesting. It is a chart I saw about the money supply. I can't find it. We should have probably just grabbed it. But basically, anytime it was like net money in the economy, because there's money coming out of the economy, and anytime that happened, there was a pretty big recession afterwards, and we're at one of those points.
Right.
And all of them had one thing in common. There was money coming out of the economy right before there was a ton of money flowing in. So it was some event that caused money to flow in. And of course, the last big one we had was the financial crisis, which was a housing that then did banks. This one is too much spending, then inflation, and then it's just sort of trying to make a mess and everything else.
Then the other thing that we have to keep in mind is that with the rise in interest rates, this is what's actually causing all the trepidation in the small banks, right? Because they own all these mortgages that are at low interest rates, and now we have high interest rates. So there's and they don't have any buyers for these securities. So the more the Fed raises interest rates, the more pressure that puts on these small banks. So that's my other concern with it. So I think that the Fed may actually consider not continuing to raise interest rates, not necessarily because of inflation, but I think they're going to weigh the damage that this does to small banks. And they might say, you know what, let's let everything that we've been doing kind of take its course in the economy and see where it goes, and hope that we haven't done too much to harm the small banks.
Okay, here's the chart. It's called the blended money supply chart. Year-on-year change. It goes back to 1831. Okay, despite what you may have been told, we were not doing the videos yet, but the Crash Bros were still talking about the housing crash that was going to happen in the housing crash of 1837, which they correctly predicted. It took them 6 years in a row of predicting a housing crash. But back then they did it by walking through town, ringing a bell, announcing the housing crash.
Right.
Okay. All right. Now, what's interesting about this chart is anything below that line, anything below that's the year-on-year change of money. So if you look from like basically the end of World War II until pretty much now, we've had this nice even flow of money, money being printed and flowing in the economy in such a way to support the expansion of the economy. We need more money as the economy grows. And now you can see this ridiculous thing that happened, which was all that spending for COVID and then government spending. And, it was probably a little too much. We maybe needed the first one, but not the other two that happened after that. But now you can see what's happened is the Fed stepped in and said, all right, Congress and White House, we've had enough. We're going to choke off the money supply that you guys are jacking up. And you can see that. Now, when you see these little arrows, you can see all of the things that happen here. And every one of these was pretty much a recession. There was a panic. There were a bunch of panics back in the 1800s. If you don't know what a panic is, what was panic? Do you remember what that is?
This is really protracted if you really want to talk about it. So we've had several iterations of the Federal Reserve, and there was the gold standard. There were states issuing their own money. There was all this crazy stuff going on. So is that how far you want to go? I'm not sure where you want to go with this.
So basically, there were far more banks than there were today.
Right.
And the banks weren't backed by there wasn't really a Federal Reserve.
No. So banks were issuing their own money. States were issuing their own money. There was this whole big chaotic thing.
The problem is that word would get out that a bank was going to fail and there'd be a run on the bank.
Right.
And it was known as a panic. And what happened is that banks would literally, it was like Silicon Valley Bank. But they would fail the banks because everyone would rush in and try to get their money. And they'd say, we don't have the money because we've loaned it out. It's just if you saw It's a Wonderful Life, that was a panic. That was a run on the bank, right? They ended the day with $1. They didn't, whatever. So potentially here, according to this chart, there's a recession coming. Now, it doesn't mean everyone's like, oh yeah, well, there's a recession. It's always like housing. It just gets hammered anytime there's a recession. Not necessarily true.
But remember,
the opposite can actually happen,
right?
Because in a recession, well, tell them what happens.
Okay, so 4 out of 6 recessions, housing went up, not down. But remember, the price of housing only matters when you go to sell the house. The rest of the time, if you own the house free and clear, it doesn't matter. If you have a fixed payment and it's a payment that you can afford, it doesn't matter. It only matters when you go to sell the house. So regardless of what craziness is out there, enjoy your house. Life is good. The value of your house is for entertainment purposes only until you go to sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about this other interesting thing. Construction job openings are falling.
Right.
And the number of people employed in construction jobs are falling.
Right. So we touched on that with the vast number of apartments that have been put up over the last couple of years, and those jobs wrapping up, and these people that have been working on them being laid off, not having these jobs anymore. So we are seeing a tick up in the construction, and like I said before, I know they're not the only construction workers that are out of work, but they are making. But those numbers are outsized compared to other construction jobs. Plus, the other thing is, we're not building as much commercial buildings. As many commercial buildings, because obviously there's something going on there, and so that's part of the reason why they don't have jobs to go to.
Okay, here's a chart. This is very interesting. So if you look, this is job openings. This is job openings. This is available jobs. And now remember, we have job openings even though we have people but the amount of openings have decreased. But what's interesting about this chart, if you go all the way to the right and you see that last little down, that's the last 3 months where it's dropped, right? So if you just look at 3 months, it looks terrible. But then when you take a step back and look historically, this chart goes back to 2000. In the end of 2009 there, you had zero. There were zero job openings in construction. And that was the housing where nobody was building. And then you can see that it slowly built back because we need to start building. We got way behind. And this is what allowed home prices to go up, right? We got way behind in home building. But there was building going on in the U.S. Cities were building skyscrapers, and we were building office space and industrial space, and just they were building stuff. and because the economy's growing and we have more people. So potentially, Juana, what does this look like if we go through the cycle again where we stop building? Because right now the problem is we have a shortage of skilled workers, and because they want too much money, and a lot of construction companies, and that's of course they're either having to pay the money and then pass it on, which is inflation, right? Now, what does this look like in 5 years if we get back through this thing where we've been building less and less homes? What happens in 5 years? We're going to be behind again, because we're already behind, and we're like losing, like we were catching up, even though we were behind like 6.5 million. We were starting to turn the corner, and maybe we'd only be short 5 million houses, but now we're going the other way again.
Right. So what's going to happen is a couple things. Skilled workers will be in demand again. You're going to have a reworking of the supply chain. So what that means is that you're going to have more prefabrication, whether it's done here domestically or it's done abroad. And I know that we certainly would like jobs to stay here in the U.S., but if we do not have sufficient skilled workers, then those prefab jobs will go abroad, and we'll have more, basically, for lack of a better term, kit houses, where the builder is ordering everything from somebody else and just from different vendors, and just basically assembling it rather than building anything on site, which I realize that they do that to some extent now. I think it's going to be much more if we end up with a shortage of labor, so that they simply do not have the labor to build everything on site. It will require less labor for them to just assemble everything that is already manufactured.
The way homes have been built has literally not changed in a long time.
Well, it has changed to some extent, because
I mean the not necessarily the quality of homes.
No. So I want to say two things about that. It's changed.
Okay.
It's changed in two ways.
Okay.
So first of all, it's changed. So we started out with building houses from nothing, right? We would have barn raising, right? You'd have everybody in the community get together.
How far back are we going?
Actually, I'm only going to the late 1800s. But
that's pretty far back.
No, I'm making a point though.
Okay.
So
the Amish who don't watch our videos.
Yes. So basically, so you would get together and you'd get the lumber and whatnot, and you'd build a house. Great. Then we went to kit houses. Now this is really important, because those of you that have been around, around the sun a few times, you will remember the Sears and Roebuck catalog. But this is really important, because they had the most awesome kit houses.
Oh my God.
If you have ever been to San Francisco, or if you've ever seen movies that take place in San Francisco, those beautiful Victorian houses in San Francisco, those were all kit houses.
Yeah.
So you would go in the catalog and you would order a kit house. So
like $800, right?
Well, yes. They were anywhere between $400 and $800. The really expensive ones were $800. And you could pick your gables, and you could pick your trim and everything. Now, it came in boxes.
IKEA.
Exactly.
It was the original IKEA.
Oh my gosh, yes. So again, you had these kit houses that anybody could put together. I mean, they came with instructions, they came with the nails and the glue and the whole thing. It was amazing.
Okay.
And so we went to that.
There's a caveat to that.
Right. So then we didn't do that anymore. Then we went to the construction that we're all kind of accustomed to, which is, you get 2x4s and 4x4s and you get plywood and whatnot, and you build a house. And then we went to prefabricated trusses and pre-hung doors and pre-hung windows. So now we've got this melding of prefab and build on site. And now, what I'm suggesting is that maybe we're going to go back to something akin to the Sears and Roebuck house.
Yeah, but I think what they're going to do, so Sears and Roebuck houses, you would order the house and then you would hire somebody to build it. Like people generally didn't build the house. It did come with instructions.
Okay, it's like when you buy the swing set on Amazon and it says, do you want the guys or do you want to do it yourself? Okay, yeah. You want the guys, right? Because if anybody who's built a swing set off Amazon, you want the guys. It's kind of the same thing with the Sears and Roebuck house. You want the guys. Right.
So, but I think that, this idea of, this tiny homes, these are a thing, or these little bitty prefab homes. I think that's a wave of the future for building housing is to be, you build like a whole little apartment offsite, and then it goes on a flatbed and it gets literally stacked. Like one startup we invested in.
Manufactured homes are like that.
Yeah, they are, but we're talking about something that's more permanent.
Well, manufactured homes are permanent because they have permanent foundation.
Yeah, but
they're attached to land.
But the technology is like it's a trailer, like it's a,
Right.
No, it is. But you're right. That is a form of prefabricated home.
Yes. So what I'm suggesting is that we're going to maybe, if we lack skilled labor, go back to some melding of the IKEA prefab house, Susan Roebuck house, and craftsmen. Our issue is that we simply do not have enough craftsmen. We are not training them. Our construction industry is not sufficiently stable to keep people in the business and to have apprentices and to have true craftsmen rather than laborers. And I think that's really a huge distinction, the distinction between craftsmen and laborers.
The other opportunity, I think, is in the cities to take these office buildings potentially and convert them. Now, the problem is once you start converting your office buildings to residential, now you have to decide, because, do you convert the whole building? Do you leave the first 30 floors office building and then just take the top 30 floors and make that residential?
Right. So in New York, they're doing a lot of this because their goal is
like new construction.
No. So what they're doing is they're in New York City. Their goal is to have 500,000, so 500,000 new residential units in the city.
Yeah.
Now the only way you can do that, I mean, you're not going to be able to tear down buildings and put new buildings up. So what they're doing is they're converting portions of the building. So let me give you an example. I believe it's Simon and Schuster, I think.
Yeah, it's on like Broadway and 57th or something,
and so
right?
what they're doing
it's right
there,
by Columbus Circle.
Right. So what they're doing there, they're keeping like the first 11 floors of the building as office.
Right.
And then from there to like the 32nd or 33rd floor, it's going to be, they're converting that to residential, and like either the 33rd, 34th floors, they're going to do like a gym and that sort of thing. So they're going to convert a lot of these buildings that were previously strictly office buildings into mixed use, where there's some office, there's some retail, and there's residential. So I think you're going to see a lot of that. I think the challenge with that is the expense, because of course these buildings were never designed to have that many toilets, showers, that sort of thing. So that's a lot of it.
That's a real problem.
Yes, it is.
Commercial buildings don't use anywhere near as much water.
Right.
And they're going to have to replumb these things for the waste, the water supply.
Well, and the other thing is, how do you deal with the heating and air conditioning, because now you have separate units, and so there are some challenges, which brings expense to it. This is not something that can't be overcome with money, but the question is, can you do it in a way that's economically feasible, meaning that you can absorb the cost, pass on the cost to consumer, and still make a profit?
Yeah, I think they will, because I think what they'll do is, there'll be one of two models, which are the two existing models. They'll make the units and sell them, or some investor will come in and buy the whole thing and turn it into,
right, and
some sort of monthly, or hey, you can stay here for a month, furnish it, or they'll just say it's just a flat out rental. You just move in and you sign long-term leases.
Right, and I think you're going to see a lot of that, and particularly in areas like, for example, San Francisco. We were talking about the building last week, where somebody's going to buy it for
$300 million.
What's a $300 million building? They're going to buy it for about $60 million, and they're basically going to sit on it, right? They're just going to sit on it until the city comes back, and when it does, they're going to decide what to do with it, whether they're going to convert it to mixed use, they're going to leave it as office, what they're going to do with it. My take on it is that they're going to some sort of mixed use, kind of like they're doing in New York, where part of it's going to be office, part of it's going to be living, and it'll be interesting to see. It's always fun to watch real estate. It's very dynamic. It's very interesting, which is why we do these videos, because we get excited about these things.
Yeah, and we went off on a tangent because we started talking about like randomly converting commercial space to
But it's interesting.
And doing that. Okay, $9.99. It's done. tomorrow is 1,000. We'll go through all the questions and we'll sit down. We'll pick the best ones. We'll say who asked the question, and then we'll go through and answer as many as we can. So I don't know how long the video is going to be. It's pretty much just going to be, I think, just us talking and answering the questions. I don't know that
Okay, all of our videos are us talking.
Yeah, but I mean, it won't be like. But some of the questions are like some random real estate questions that we'll just answer pretty quickly.
Okay, and to ensure that you will get your question answered, we are not above being tipped. Go ahead and tip us and ask your question, and we will answer your question to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So we appreciate you watching. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video, like the video, leave us your questions, and we will see you on episode 1000. Woohoo! We're very excited, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye.